Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to The Upside. I'm Jonathan Oleski with JMOR, and our show today is about to begin. I'd like to introduce our two fabulous hosts, Beth Goldsmith, Chair of the Associated Jewish Federation of Baltimore, and Dr. Scott Rifkin, publisher of JMOR. Beth and Scott, take it away.
Thanks, Jonathan, and welcome again, everyone, to The Upside, our virtual show brought to you by the Associated Jewish Federation of Baltimore and JMOR Magazine to keep our Baltimore Jewish community informed during these times of uncertainty. As the school year is approaching, important decisions are being made on how best to educate our students during this pandemic. On the one hand, the American Academy of Pediatrics says the children learn best when they are physically in school. On the other hand, as evidenced in the states where schools have reopened, the coronavirus already has infected students who have returned to the classroom. So what is the answer? We are very fortunate today to talk to two wonderful local treasures, our own experts who share what their institutions are doing, how they came to their decisions, and the long-term impact on our kids. Scott, over to you to introduce our guests.
Thank you, Beth. I'm looking at my own picture in the Zoom, which is always dangerous. And I look like this big talking head, just floating in the air of some sort. So it's pretty funny, actually. Someday I'm going to get the hang of this Zoom thing, but it hasn't happened yet. Maybe it's just that I'm too old. Maybe that's the issue. But anyhow, thank you. We have wonderful guests today. Beth Tfiloh Community Day School Director, Dr. Zipora Schorr, and Krieger Schechter Day School Head of, this is like a Peter Piper peck. I can't even pronounce things anymore. I'm getting too old. Krieger Schechter Day School Head of School, Rabbi Moshe Schwartz. Dr. Schorr has been at Beth Tfiloh since 1982, and Rabbi Schwartz became head of the school at Krieger Schechter in 2015. Thank you both for being here today and putting up with my random thoughts at the beginning of the show as usual. So thank you both, and appreciate you being here. Beth, why don't you lead off with the first question?
Well, I will. I'm happy to. Thanks, Scott. I want to start with what we're sort of calling plans, although I know at the Associated we joke that a long-term plan is anything that happens more than 3 days from now, because things are so uneasy and so much in motion. So what are your reopening plans? And if you'd each take a little moment to tell us how you came to that decision. And I'm going to start with ladies first.
Okay. First of all, Moshe, when's the last time you were called a treasure? I haven't been called a treasure ever, especially during these times. If anything, it seems to me that if I sold little Cupid dolls of myself so people could throw darts at them, I'd make a fortune. Because there's no question that truly these times are extraordinarily tension-filled and stressful for parents, for kids, for teachers, for all of us, really. And so, when you talk about a reopening plan, I know that Rabbi Schwartz and I we've been for years in collaboration. I know that he would agree with me if I said there is no such thing as a right or wrong answer. There are answers that we give. There are attempts at making it right, but nobody has a monopoly on what's absolutely necessary. And so we've spent an enormous amount of time on what we call a reopening plan. The reopening plan has to take into consideration, first and foremost, health and wellness and the well-being of our school community. That I happen to agree with the American Pediatric Association assessment, and that is children are suffering and children need to be in school. I'm gonna quote an article from the New York Times that interviewed 5,000 people, and 41% of them were found to have anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and so on. And it hit most young adults. And so as a school that has preschool, lower school, middle school, and high school, it is of key importance to us that our kids come together and have some semblance of social life. What does that mean? However, if you've got a social life that is socially distant and a social life that is very carefully curated, that presents enormous challenges. And I'm going to say it again, and you're going to hear me say it again and again, health and safety take precedence over social life and over convenience and over everything that comes down lower down on the scale of importance. Our opening plan is really a very broad one. For preschool, our children are invited to come in real life. In total, we have something that a lot of schools don't have, and that is space and personnel. However, there are parents who have chosen not to send their children to preschool. They felt that it was not safe for them, or they have compromising health situations in their own homes. One thing that I can say, and I know that Moshe feels the same way, we respect the rights of parents to make decisions that is right for them. And so our preschool has, we're in school, we call it IRL, in real life, and the option for what we call a Kesher program, which is an ability for a preschool parent and student to zoom in during key times of preschool life, a Kabbalat Shabbat program, or a story time, or even snack time, where a child then can feel connected to their classmates, but not IRL in real life. In lower school, we have in every single grade, our lower school is K through 4. Out of the 3 sections of our lower school in each grade, 1 section has been designated as a VA, a virtual academy, where students will be on Zoom for their school day, because they, again, parents are not comfortable sending their children to school. The other 2 sections, each of them 14 children each, because we do have we have designated very small sections, will be within their pods. They will be literally interacting only with the children in their class and the teachers of their class, and they will be coming in at separate entrances, and they'll be coming in a staggered way, and we will be very, very compliant with hand washing, with social distancing, with masks. All studies have said that masks are key to all of this. Our teachers will wear masks, and our children will as well. At the middle school and high school level, we are inviting our students in middle school 5th grade and high school 9th grade, because those are the 2 grades that have not yet been in those divisions. And so we feel strongly that those need to get an opportunity to live their experience in that division for the first time. And we're staggering the other grades as we live the experience. Every student, however, is any student rather, is allowed to Zoom in instead of actually being in the classroom. And so every single student at Beth Tfiloh has the option either to be in school IRL or to be virtual, because truly we are respecting and celebrating your decision, but and making it possible for you to Zoom in. So a high school teacher will have either a laptop or a screen in their classroom, and our Zoomers, that's what we're calling them, our Zoomers who are not actually IRL in the classroom will be the last row in the classroom. They'll be part of the classroom on screen, but they won't be in the classroom in real life. That's our effort at making it possible for everyone in their style to be able to be in school, because we want you one way or another to be exposed to what is most important in your life, which is to learn and to grow. Moshe, doing some of the same things.
Moshe, tell us what you're doing.
Well, we are, first of all, I think Dr. Schwartz summed up many of the things that we're doing. I would call myself a professional scenario writer these days. Amongst my other claims to fame, we write a lot of scenarios, and as Beth said so eloquently, things do change very quickly. So we put together a bunch of committees, including a health committee. We vetted our plans with our faculty and really brought them on board from the beginning to ask them, because their safety and their health is of paramount importance. And we understand that with uncertainty and risk, we have to have the courage to sort of make challenging decisions, but that they're guided by the commitment to our mission, to health and safety, and to prioritizing our students' academic learning. So we are opening in a hybrid where students will be on campus several days a week and virtually several days a week. And while there's always a virtual option similar to Beth Tfiloh, we believe that by reducing the total number of students on campus on any given day, there'll be opportunities for a more, I don't want to say aggressive, but a calmer opening that will allow us to ensure this for the long term, because that's what we're in is in it for the long term. So, I'll give more details as we go through, but I think listening, research, and collaboration were key to writing the plan for a hybrid start to the school year.
So let me give a few thoughts as a medical person, and I understand why you're opening the ways you're opening, and some people at home and smaller volumes and all of that. That all makes perfect sense to me. But here are my problems as a medical person. I don't really think that social distancing for small children ever is going to work. I just don't think if they're in the same classroom together, how do you do that? Okay. And the second is, at what point, at some point this year, and let's hope it doesn't happen at your schools, but we're already seeing children get this disease. We're already seeing children die from this disease. And we're already seeing their parents and grandparents get the disease from them. And so the question is, what do you do when the first kid comes up positive at your school? That attended, that was coming to class each day? What do you do? We used to joke in medicine that kindergarten was the great viral swap meet. That was the term. The kids would come to class, they'd swap viruses, they'd take them home, you'd get sick. How do you not have that happen for a virus as contagious as this one? I know the precautions, but what do you do when it does happen?
Go ahead.
I'm happy to start and tell you that, first of all, I put in the chat, which means that those who are following can see we have a website, and on the website is a document that's our roadmap to reopening. If you click on slide 19 on this website, ksds.edu, and you can follow the links. And then slide 19 is a detailed methodology, process, and metrics related to the ongoing assessment for on-campus safety. So what we did was we developed our own metrics as a school using Johns Hopkins professionals and researchers from the area and all the wise and talented people that we have in the community to help us understand when is it one case in this grade or two cases in that grade. It's kind of like the great arguments in the Talmud. You can have 50 different scenarios. What I can tell you is that we did some statistical analysis, and we drilled down into the testing and positivity rates in the 6 zip codes from which 85% of our families come. So what we did was we did a very granular look. We also watched and looked at all the schools that have not been successful. Masks on and rules to be followed are the key to success. And I say that because we've told our parents that means that some of your kids may not be able to play travel soccer this fall. If families are not able to follow certain social distancing rules outside of the building, in addition to what they need to follow in the building, they will be, I don't want to say reverted, because it's not a negative. Our virtual program is very strong, and we've spent all the last 6 months beefing it up. So we have a very strong virtual program, but the coming to school is a privilege. And so it has to be a community partnership, and it has to be something that everyone takes seriously and works together. So I point out that I'm sitting in my office doing this session, and my mask is right here, because if someone were to come to the door, I need to put the mask on immediately. But because my door is closed and I'm in my office alone, the building policy permits me, because we all, Dr. Schorr has also, we all have great HVAC systems with the best filters and all those things. No, Dr. Rifkin, I want to be clear. We never promise no risk, right? There's absolutely risk here, but the statistical probability of of transmission in the building, if everyone is following their rules, is under 1.5% based on probability in other schools. And that's a risk we're willing to take because the mental health needs and the educational needs of our students being in person are greater.
I'm gonna echo that. This is the Harvard Global Health Institute, Path to Zero and Schools, Achieving Pandemic Resilient Teaching and Learning Spaces. And just like, of course, Moshe and his team, I've consulted with 2 epidemiologists, 4 pediatricians, our nurses, and we're in constant touch with the same thing that you're reading, we're reading as well. And Dr. Rifkin, I am sure, although you might have more expertise medically, you are, of course, exposed to the same kind of information that we are. There's no such thing as no risk. And anybody who is going to say that is lying. There's no such thing as no risk. Mitigating risk is our job. And that's exactly what Rabbi Schwartz is saying. And to the extent that we can mitigate risk, all of the statistics and all of the research is showing that there are certain things that you can do to mitigate risks. We're doing all of those things, including spending $150,000 on an air purification system so that the air is pure, including hiring more custodial staff so that things get sanitized more quickly, including keeping children away from each other. When I say I'm opening for 5th grade and in 9th grade, they are in different buildings. You can be in this school and not even know that there's another division going on because we have the space to do that. You can be in the school and not know that 80 kids are dismissing from a different door on the other side of the campus. And so, yes, we cannot promise no risk. We promise that we are going to do everything possible to keep our community safe. And to piggyback onto something that Moshe said, our parents need to understand, and we've discussed this, the 2 of us, that this is a social contract. This is a sacred social contract. When I spoke to somebody the other day who told me he went to shul, he was wearing a mask, and he walked over to somebody else and said, "Could you adjust your mask?" And the other guy said, "That's my problem." And he said, "It's not. I'm wearing my mask to protect you. You need to wear your mask to protect me." And in truth, that's what we're talking about here. We're teaching our children and our parents that it is not just about them. It is about taking responsibility. Kol Yisrael Arevim, we are taking responsibility for each other as members of a community that believe in what we're doing. You can't do better than that. All we can do is do our best. And that's what we're doing.
I'm going to jump in, Sippy, because you were talking about parents, and clearly they're such a large piece of the equation.
Of course.
So what, beyond making sure them when their children are not in school, that they are still observing safe, precautions and whatever else they do, what other roles are you helping parents to understand, and particularly share? What about those whose children have chosen, or who have chosen to have their children do this all online?
Mm-hmm. So I can tell you that just as our teachers, 150 of them actually, 200 of them, spent the summer getting professional development and getting better at what they do, we are also putting in place education for parents. And you are 100% correct. They are a very important part of the equation. If parents don't self-report, then we have very little recourse. This is a democracy, but we are requiring that students take temperature beforehand and post it on what we call Magnus. It's a platform where you post your temperature. But there's something else we're doing. We are asking parents, if they are traveling to any kind of a hotspot.
Zippy, we lost your screen.
Sorry. We are asking parents that if they are traveling to, it's no loss, Scott. I mean, it's okay. I mean, really, at my age, it's not a loss.
You're a lot prettier than me, please.
Well, that I'll give you, but that's about the most I can say. In any case, we are asking parents actually to self-quarantine for 2 weeks before coming to school if they are traveling to a hotspot, and they are. Walk around the neighborhood, and you will see The children of parents who are more careful and who are more compliant are more compliant. And then you walk around the neighborhood and you see kids doing everything but going to school. Everything but going to school, which means that if they're in school, they're at least in a place that is more compliant than what they're doing at home. That is a fact. That said, there's only so much we can do. We try really hard, and I know that Schechter does exactly the same thing. We try to educate our parents. We try to include them in the process. We try to collaborate with them and make them partners with us so that they take the same kind of responsibility that we're taking. It's our kids writ large. This is a partnership, and in both cases, I will tell you that we feel that way without a question.
So tell me about the teachers. How many of the teachers have chosen to come back? I know the public school systems and the colleges are having a big problem with this. How many of the teachers have chosen to teach in person, and how many have said, it's too much risk for me?
Interesting. There's a petition actually out now of private school teachers that are wondering why they need to come back to school when the public schools in many areas are closed. And the answer to that is, unfortunately, and fortunately, there is a huge divide. Public schools cannot offer what private schools can, which is space, technology, personnel. That's a terrible thing. I'm going to say something as a person who cares about American society, not just Beth Tfiloh, even though I've been criticized as only caring about Beth Tfiloh. I promise you that I care about things beyond my Dalit Amot. We are really educating a generation of children who are not going to be able to read. In 6 years from now, the offtake of that is going to be seen in society as those children grow up without the skills that they need. So I'm going to tell you that there's going to be, as bad as the divide is now between the haves and the have-nots, it's going to get greater. The fact is, however, that we do have facilities and technology that make it possible for our kids to be either. In answer to your specific question about teachers, however, the answer to private school teachers is they have an opportunity to be in an environment where they can have mitigated risk. I'm going to tell you that between the two of us, I know that we've lost teachers that are uncomfortable or are compromised and can't come into the building. I have, however, made it possible for those teachers, if they are interested, and many of them are, to be virtual teachers. So that, for example, I have a teacher who recently recovered from surgery. He's a sensational teacher and can't wait to get back into the classroom. His doctor won't let him, and I won't allow him in without a doctor's note. So he is going to be teaching 2 of his senior classes virtually until such time as he's ready to come back into the building, until his doctor allows him to do that. I have the ability to do that because I have other personnel who will supervise that class while they are on screen watching this teacher teach. And there will be interaction because technology has made it possible for us to do that. So do we have teachers who have quit because they're worried about coming in? Yes, I won't sugarcoat that. But I have more teachers whose personal experiences, whose personal situation has been explained to us, and we are working with them so that we have the best of both worlds. The opportunity to have a gifted teacher teach students and not have that teacher on staff, on site.
So let me add, we would not have brought our reopening plan to our board if we didn't have a teacher for every section, for every grade. Right. Our enrollment is up. We've gained 28 students from the public schools this year, and we are delighted to have opened new sections. But new sections also means that, right, we are guaranteeing 6 feet of distance and space in every room. So we are also being creative about space. I just want to go back to something you talked about before, because it dovetails on what you've been talking about. I believe there was a great, meme on Facebook or something that, it said, if you decide to send your kids to school, you're a good parent. If you decide to send your kids to virtual academy at Schechter or at Beth Tfiloh or any school, you're a good parent. And if you're not sure what you're doing, you're also a good parent. And I do believe that we are not here to judge our families, but we are here to lay clear rules and regulations down and policies that need to be followed. And we had our faculty surveyed at no less than 4 different instances this summer, so that we took their temperature figuratively, so that we understood whether this was going to work and what things they were going to stomach, and all of us have to be comfortable coming in every day. And so what we then did was invested in professional development. Remember, the faculty have never taught, so in our school they're going to have a computer monitor next to them if a child is home for some reason, and zooming into the class to look. That screen, I know Dr. Schorr showed it last night in her town hall, which I participated in. She was showing how different schools are doing it different ways, whether you see the whole board or just the teacher's face or the whole classroom. There are different ways of doing it. But the point is that the children at home are going to be engaged in the class, and our faculty are now testing these new modes of teaching and learning, because this is all new to all of us and we're growing together. And so while I used to preach flexibility, today I'm preaching patience, because ultimately what this is really an exercise in everybody's patience. Our students will arrive 2 weeks, some students will be in the building 2 weeks from today, and we appreciate every parent. They haven't gotten their class lists yet, but they're coming. That's not the most important thing right now, and there's a few other things that have to happen first. And so as we move along, our goal was to bring everybody along on the journey. And to date, we have only had 1 family leave the school so far, thank God, related to our reopening plans. And the reasons are personal, you know? So I think what we're doing is letting everyone know that this is a community project. Our school has to fulfill its mission, and we have to keep everybody safe. And if we do, then we have the privilege of being in this building for a longer period of time than other schools. I also don't appreciate, or not appreciate, I think it's a misnomer to say that other schools are closed, they're not opening, or not there. One of the main reasons that those schools are not opening is that their faculty was not on board to open, and they're bringing their faculty along in other groups, whether that's a diocese school or an Ames school or a public school. All we do is speak for ourselves and speak for the wonderful teachers that we have at our schools. And we know that we'll be ready to educate our students 2 weeks from this week.
The difference between what Moshe said and what I'm doing is he surveyed his teachers. My teachers are so not inhibited that they survey themselves and they tell me what they're going to do every step of the way. I mean, they are not shy. And so I think we've heard from every single teacher one way or another. And for the most part, if they're comfortable coming to school, they're coming to school. We also have had children from public school coming to our school. We've had the same exact experience. And what we learned from the 3 months prior to the end of school last year is that we can do it, but we can hone and fine tune our skills so that our teachers are even better than they were. We pivoted to virtual instruction, excuse the pun, virtually overnight. We really pivoted in March. We ended March 14th, and by March 17th, we were on. And I have to tell you, over the summer, in both cases, our staffs have learned an enormous amount, and they are ready to do 3 things. One is to teach on campus. The other is to invite Zoomers, that's what we call them, into their classroom. The other is to pivot virtually should we be required to go virtual across the board. And so our teachers are ready to do any one of those 3 things. And for the most part, they're interested. Those teachers that are not interested, or those teachers that feel they're compromised and just are not ready to do it virtually, I respect we will certainly respect their decisions, but we're staffed.
How do you explain to a young child what's going on in a way that doesn't create a lasting trauma for them? You know, for our parents, it was World War II and the Depression. For us, what was the big 9/11? And they were the big things that impacted the way we look at the world. For this generation of kids, it's going to be this pandemic. So how do you work with children at various ages to understand this in ways that doesn't scare them for the rest of their lives, doesn't create major trauma for them, but helps them understand what their responsibilities are?
It's obviously different at different ages, of course. If you've got a preschool child versus a high school senior, you're talking about two very different animals. The fact of the matter is that in both, I don't like to speak for Moshe, but I know that it parallels our experience. We have mental health professionals on staff, and they are not only teaching our children, but they're teaching our teachers how to speak to their children, what language to use, what kind of a lexicon can we be aware of, and that can we be skillful at, so that we can help our children wrap their head around it. Let me ask you a question, Scott. You think adults have wrapped their head around this? I mean, here
No.
I mean,
But
here we
we're
are.
we're hopeless.
Exactly.
It's too late for us.
See, so I can't, you're right. That's really true. I can't speak for the adults. I can certainly, however, speak for the children. And that's why I'm in the business that I'm in. And that's why Moshe's in the business he's in. Because with children, they are resilient, and they can be even more resilient. They've got the grit, and they've got the sensitivity to be what we need them to be, which is to be understanding and to be compassionate and not to be scared to death. And these are difficult, scary times for children. If they're scary for adults, how can we assume that they're not going to be scary for children? And yet, when you have them in an environment where everyone is walking around calm, which is what we try to get them all to be, when everyone is walking around comfortable inside their skin, when everyone's walking around saying, you know what, we're here to take care of you. As Moshe said earlier, you put in place every single mitigating factor, and you convey to the teachers and to the children, we're doing everything we possibly can to keep you safe. They feel like they're in a cocoon. They come to school and they feel like someone is taking care of them. And very frankly, our kids tell us that. They tell us that when they come into the building, they feel this sense of enveloped love and enveloped safety. But am I going to tell you that kids are not growing up in an era of uncertainty? Most definitely they are. And that's where parent education comes in.
Dr. Schorr, I think you did something else that I know our school has done also, and it's important that our listeners hear this. Both schools have made scheduling changes, and that is critical. In other words, we have put our schedule looks entirely different from last year, and one of the reasons is to ensure consistency. Okay, but part of that is so that the schedule reverts from home to school, because in the event that we need to close a section, a grade, the whole school, the campus, the schedule reverts back home. It is critically important. We also communicated early on with parents that they needed to spend this summer getting the technology in their own homes up to snuff. So all the kids whose cameras didn't work, or the Chromebook was 6 years old, right? Those are things that parents can partner with us. And we gave them a very clear list of things and expectations that we had. I also want to say that every morning our school will begin with what we call Bo Nidaber, which in Hebrew means come and speak. We are having a social and emotional curriculum that we've written, which is part of our curriculum, but every morning, first period, that will be the class for the entire school, every grade, on campus, on the days that they are on campus. And so, as opposed to starting with math or science or Hebrew or even prayers and Tfiloh, every morning, the first period will be that. I also want to add and give a huge shout out to Beth Hecht and the staff at JCS and Howard Resnick and everyone. You know, one of the things that I did early on was I called JCS and I asked them, what are the resources that you'll be able to provide? And so over the coming weeks, we will be able to offer our faculty things that JCS will have programs and offerings to help with the mental health of our faculty. We're drawing on certain JCS resources as we redevelop that Bo Nidaber curriculum. And we're working on a parent series. I know Dr. Schorr has Dr. Gilboa coming, a famous person who's a world expert in certain things, in mental health and pediatric medicine. These are the things that we're doing because we have to provide for our families as well. So what I can tell you is that on our reopening document, which I really encourage people to read, there's multiple slides on the mental health and awareness pieces that we are doing, because it absolutely goes part and parcel with the safety and security. You can't have masks on and then not worry about anxiety, okay? And so I just want to give one other example is in the way in which we revamped our school supply list this year, that's to reduce the amount of anxiety. We did a change to our dress code, because the last thing we need are parents and kids fighting in the morning about what the kid's gonna wear. As far as I'm concerned, if there's no profanity on the shirt, if it's a clean and it looks menschy, just put it on and come to school. We love you. Wear your mask. The boys wear your kippot. You know, just do your thing. And so what we're doing is we're setting up the best systems for the mental health of our children and for their potential success this year.
To take it a step further, we have a very, very robust staff that is involved in mental health in our school. We have advisors and social workers throughout the school. I love the idea of using JFS, but we do have an in-house staff. We are actually, this is an interesting place where we diverge, Moshe. But Moshe thinks that if kids come in any kind of a shirt, that makes them feel comfortable. I feel if they are required to wear their uniform shirts, it makes them feel like things are all right with the world and things are expected. And I'm a traditionalist. The only thing that I did do, get ready for this announcement, I'm allowing my preschool teachers to wear jeans to school. Now this is, I mean, you heard it here first. This is a big
Is this an announcement to them? Do they know this?
I just texted it to my preschool director. She asked, can they be loosened in their dress code? And I said, what do you mean, like jeans or something? And she said, yeah, jeans. I said, all right, I'm going to surprise you. I'm going to say yes.
I can see a lead article, J. Moore jeans.
No, here's the article. Schorr gives in on her religious principles and allows jeans in school. And that's what it's going to be spun.
Now, would we write an article like that?
Oh, I've had much worse written about me, Scott. Take a ticket.
Not J. Moore, yeah.
No, not in any case, so yeah, we are going to be loosening those kind of things. But what Moshe is saying is really of key importance. That's why I started with the article that I had read. Anxiety is felt throughout this. There is an enormous amount, and we have to be honest and straightforward and confront it. Our children are not available for instruction if they are anxious. If there's something going on up here, you can tell them, you can teach them math and physics and Chumash and Torah, and it's not going in because they've got so many other things keeping it from them. So it is of key importance to make children available for instruction. And the only way you're going to do that is make them feel comfortable and comforted in the environment in which they're in. And that's what we try to do throughout our schools.
Let me jump in real quick about talking about socialization and health and genes. Are we having some special play type activities? Are there going to be, are the playgrounds open? Will there be sports? Talk to us about that side.
We do have playgrounds, and they have to, according to the regulations, they need to be sanitized between groups. So we will have children playing outside in small groups. The same thing will happen with any kind of PE. PE will take place outdoors. Moshe and I actually have discussed this, and there will be in small cohorts outdoors. We are working on, Moshe, I haven't sent this out yet for the high school, so you'll get this information. We are working on intramurals, and that would be separated within the grades. MIAA, which we are a member of, has announced that it will not have fall competitive sports. For many kids, that's really a problem. You can't just keep your eyes on academics if you don't have extracurriculars to make to round out your day and make it richer. And so we're trying to figure out how we can best give our kids arts, perhaps virtually, perhaps in real life. Some of you may have seen, we put on Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, and we put on Shrek. And we did it socially distanced with the kids wearing masks and shields. We have an outdoor stage. And so one of them was done in the outdoors. One was done in the theater with very, very carefully distanced. So we're experimenting with those kind of things. Beth, you touched on an important thing. Kids can't just function with math and science and English and Hebrew reading alone. They do need a rich experience. And both of our schools pride ourselves on the rich experience that we give them. And so our job is going to be to find a way, either virtually or in small groups or very carefully orchestrated, to give them the kind of extracurriculars that they thrive on and that they really do need as kids. Moshe, what are you doing?
I'm going to echo that. I'm going to say I've never played archery. I don't remember if I've ever shot a bow and an arrow, but that is a sport that can be done socially distant because everyone can have their own arrows and then they retrieve them carefully, of course. So we are approved by the Maryland State Archery Association with a licensed teacher. So we are looking at all different creative sports and opportunities, but we're not having league soccer as well. And some of our fall sports are not happening. The preschool playground at Goldsmith will be open and sanitized in between, but the Schechter playground will remain closed at least for the first 30 days. Students need to understand that it's impossible to really sanitize our playground properly. And so what we need to do is to minimize risk. And so we have different phases of our reopening as well. And so we are opening in what we're calling red, which is the strongest phase. And as such, we can't have the playground open. But we've scaled back some of the after school activities, but we also announced last night that our choir is able to meet online and continue to work on things. So they're going to have Thursday evenings, they're going to have choir rehearsal, and there'll be some after school clubs and activities that are going to actually meet in the evenings, because one of the things that we did, getting back to the mental health question for 1 second, we announced a revision to our homework policy. To reduce student anxiety, we're going to be not eliminating homework, but significantly reducing homework and targeting our homework, because homework will be for specific subjects to reinforce certain skills that were taught in school. And as such, students will have probably about half as much or a quarter as much of the homework that they usually have. And people who go to Schechter know that that's a lot. So by doing that, what we are doing is creating space for families, for the kids who've worked so hard all day. They need to veg out, they need to run around, they need to get exercise. So we've pre-recorded certain stretch breaks and things like that as well, to give our students the maximum opportunity. I could probably use a few of those stretch breaks myself, come to think of it. So it's a great.
Actually, Moshe, I've seen you hobble along. You could use a stretch break or two, but I'm going to ask you to do me a personal favor. Do not announce that Schechter is going to do away with homework, because if you do, you will have a migration from Beth Tfiloh to Schechter in a heartbeat. Do me a favor. Please, on a personal note, don't announce.
Significant reduction is the term.
Reduction we're doing too. Don't eliminate, whatever you do. In any case, but as you can see, both of us are that's all we think about. Truly, I don't think we've ever worked so hard in our lives. Our staff hasn't worked so hard, haven't worked so hard in their lives. We are thinking about everything we possibly can to do two things. One, to keep our kids safe. Two, to educate them in a way that is rich and multifaceted. And those two things sometimes are in conflict with each other. And so we have to find ways for them to both be able to be as enriching for our children as they are. We want them to be in school, either way, virtual or IRL. We will respect their choices and respect their decisions, and we will make their experience as rich as we possibly can. And I do know that I'm speaking for both of us in that case.
So let me thank both of you for the great efforts you're making to make the children safe. Everybody has their concerns, but you're doing what you can do to make it work. What I'm going to suggest is we get an update in 6 or 8 weeks, and that we ask you all to come back on and tell us the best slate. Mike Tyson had a great line. He had a great line. You know, you can make fun of Mike Tyson for a lot of stuff, but he had a great line that was really very interesting. He said, "Everybody's got a plan until I punch them in the face." And so, I mean, it was a great line when you really think about it. And so everybody's got.
That's eloquent, Scott.
Yeah. Well, for Mike Tyson, it was very elegant.
Scott frequently waxes eloquent.
Yeah, okay. But the point I'm making is, I think you've got great plans, and I hope they work exactly as you expect them to work. We all do. But I think it would be very interesting to find out what happens 6 or 8 weeks from now when this happened or that happened, and you've got to adapt to it. And I think that would be really interesting for the couple of thousand people who listen to this show, either on Facebook or on YouTube or wherever else they listen to it, all those those technologies beyond my abilities. But I think that would be interesting if the two of you would be kind enough to come back in 6 or 8 weeks and
It would
sort
be
of give
our,
us an update.
our pleasure, our pleasure. And look, we've become the masters of the pivot, as you can tell, right? We've pivoted more than once, and we will again. And I think it'll be a great conversation to have, is how we pivoted from this conversation to the one we're going to have 6 or 8 weeks from now.
Happy to do it. I'll end with one line I saw someplace. And this is really the experience that many of us have having. Guy gets onto a plane and he hears the following announcement. Passengers, this is your pilot. I am working from home today. So sometimes I wonder.
Right. I love that. I love that. It's much cuter than Scott's little anecdote. But before you go, I want to also add my thanks and also some announcements for the people in our viewing audience. And I want to remind everybody who is here live with us to, if you learned something today, and I'm sure you did, to please tell your friends, because they can tune in on YouTube, on the associated Facebook page. You can watch this show even after this live performance. So again, thank you so much to Dr. Schorr and to Rabbi Schwartz. For those of you out there who have children with learning differences, I want to let you know about a new educational hotline from the Associated's Shemesh. The hotline number is 410-843-7589. And you can speak to a professional on everything from how to support your developing reader to how to make your child feel less anxious. I'll repeat the number. It's 410-843-7589, and it's a hotline to Shemesh. I also want to remind you, if you are planning on voting by mail, go to voterservices.elections.maryland.gov. Again, that's voterservices.elections.maryland.gov, and go now so that you can request your ballot.
It was really easy. I did it. It took 5 minutes. If you try to remember what Beth just said for the address, but truthfully, you can probably just put into your search engine, Maryland.
Vote. You could just say mail and vote, mail voting, whatever.
Right.
It will take you to the site. Thanks, Scott. That's true. And next Tuesday, we'll be back. That's August 25th at noon for another great show. In the meantime, please visit associated.org and jmoreliving.com for more information, stories, and resources, and sign up for the weekly newsletter. And until we all meet again, please stay well.
Stay well, stay safe.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.